Hey there! Today's the day that many of you have been asking about, when I would be giving you my final gear video. So here it is. It's rainy and I was hoping to do it outside, though I'm going to actually be in my basement, but I'm going to share with you the gear that I had when I came home from the trail. So let's get to it. Okay, let's start with the pack. I carried a Granite Gear Crown 60 Women's Fit pack, and I really did like it. I had a few fit issues in the beginning. It took me a while just to really dial it in, but I was very happy with it overall. I'm not sure how far in, maybe 6 weeks or so, I decided to ditch the brain. I took that off, and so it made my pack a little bit lighter, and it weighed in at about just under 2 pounds. So it was a very light pack, and one thing that I really liked about it, I'm going to go ahead and flip it over here. This pack has what they call a refit waist belt, and I lost 26 pounds on the trail, so I definitely needed to adjust my waist belt as I went. You can actually take it out. There's a Velcro underneath here, and you can make it bigger or smaller as you need to, so that was a real nice feature. Towards the end, I was also hiking during hunting season, so it was important to have a bandana. I just actually cut this in 4 and spread out, shared it with my trail family so we could each have a piece of day-glow fabric to make sure that hunters saw us if they were anywhere near the trail, which they shouldn't be, but I actually did encounter some on the trail. And I carried a Z-seat. Some people use just an inexpensive piece of padding for this, but I really liked having it. I used it as my doorway to my tent, and I used it when I was sitting on a wet picnic table, bench, that sort of thing. Really handy little piece of gear, so that was one of my favorites. As far as potty habits, we all have those, and so I carried toilet paper. I carried a deuce of spades, which was great and very lightweight, great for digging holes. I know people say you can use a stick or trekking pole. I tried that. Doesn't work so well for me, at least, so that was handy to have. And then I had a pea style and just a little bag to keep it in. I carried on my pack straps a compass. This is also a whistle and a thermometer. It was nice, hard to read a little bit, but nice to be able to just check at least roughly what the temperature was. I pared down from 3 knives to 1 and ended up carrying the little Swiss Army knife. It had tweezers and scissors in it that came in very handy. And then I carried hand sanitizer as well, and I put a little bit of day-glow tape on that just for extra visibility. But I would carry a bottle of this and just refill it when I was in town. As far as cooking and hydration, I carried the Canuck Vecto for water carrying, and occasionally needed that for just extra water as well, but typically I would have 2 smart water bottles. One of them had a flip top with a hole in it, and I would connect the hose, run this through the straps on my pack, and be able to drink through the bite valve here as I hiked. And I do have a whole video called Hydration Hacks. If you're curious about how I did that system, you can take a look at that. I used a spoon rather than a spork. This is a titanium spoon. It's lightweight. I got the polished bowl because it just had better mouthfeel for me, and I really enjoyed having that along the trail. I used the Sawyer, the regular filter, and made sure that I slept with it when it was cold. Carried just a cheap Bic lighter. I don't think that one's even big. I think I replaced it in a store and got something else. My stove, I ended up with the MSR Pocket Rocket. I did have a couple of stove problems and switched out from the Eltec City that I got off Amazon to a Coveo Ultralight. Actually, I started with a Coveo Ultralight, and I had trouble with it lighting when it was real cold and wet in the Smokies. So I went back to my Eltec City, which was my old stove. Had some issues with the igniter on that, so I just went ahead when I was in Hot Springs and picked up this new MSR Pocket Rocket, and it served me very well. I also switched out my pot. I had a 750 liter pot with a homemade lid, and I ended up going just towards the end of my hike. I was probably about 4 or 5 months in, and switching to this one, which is from Tokes. It's a titanium pot with a lid, and it's a 550 milliliter. It doesn't really weigh significantly less, but it was more compact, and I was just trying to kind of dial down things as much as I could. For food storage, I carried an Osprey 20 liter dry sack, and I would put my garbage just in a grocery bag from the store. These were easy to get. I would just tie a knot in that and carry it that way, keep it in the food bag. I also had for hanging my food Dyneema cord. I had 50 yards of that, and I was glad for the extra length, but it did tend to get very tangled, so that was a little bit of a frustration along the hike. But it was lightweight and handy to have, and every now and then I had to cut off a little piece to use for something, so I was glad I had plenty of line. Carried a bandana. That pink one went through the whole trail with me, and it was $1 at, I think, Hobby Lobby or somewhere before I left, so that was a good deal. My tent, I don't have with me right now. It's currently with Nemo for warranty evaluation. I think they're going to replace it for me, which is great. Had some issues with water coming up through the bottom, and there was apparently a problem with the fabric. But I loved the tent overall. I was very happy with it. There's the Nemo Hornet 2-person. I made my footprint. This is out of polycryo, the shrinkable window film that people use for insulation. That worked out great. And I carried titanium tent stakes. These are real thin and little, and you can see sometimes they bend, but it was easy to kind of unbend them if I needed to. And really never had a problem where I couldn't get stakes into the ground, so that was helpful. For my clothes, I carried, this is a little Ultra Still Day pack from Sea to Summit, and I started out with one that I picked up at TJ Maxx that was a sling pack that was real lightweight, and it was made by Lewis & Clark brand, but that gave out, the seams started coming apart mid-hike, so I went ahead and ordered this day pack from Sea to Summit, and it was handy to have in town for shopping and that sort of thing, and when I wasn't using it for that, I would carry my clothes in it. For rain gear, some winners and losers here. I had the Outdoor Research Helium jacket, which I didn't really love. It tended to wet out quite a bit, and I kept it because it was a good windbreaker, but not so much for keeping me dry. But then again, what rain gear is really good for keeping you dry. It all seems to wet out. My pants were the Patagonia Alpine Houdini. I absolutely loved these. They are very, very lightweight. Since I hiked mainly in leggings on cold, windy days, the wind would cut through the fabric of the leggings, and putting these on over was great to have as an extra layer, so I did not send them home. Was very happy to have them. And both of these pack up into a little pocket, so if you want, they're compact for packing, or you can just hang them off your pack if you think it might rain and you're not sure. One other thing I had for rain gear was rain mitts that my mother made for me, and I didn't carry those in the summer, but they were great to have in the spring and in the fall when things started to get a little bit more cool. When I ditched the brain in my pack, I needed something to carry the odds and ends that were previously in the brain. So I picked up this little nylon pouch from Eagle Creek, and it was very handy. It did the trick. I just put everything in there and tossed it in the top of my pack for easy access. The items that I carried in there were my journal and also a few pages from the AWOL guide. I carried a pen that I don't have here and also a highlighter because I would make notes on the AWOL guide as I was planning. Also had a comb and extra carabiner earplugs, which are essential in shelters, and some nail clippers, which are handy when you get a snag nail, or also if you need to cut something if you don't have scissors. I did, but sometimes they were just more convenient. The headlamp I started out with a different version of the Petzl Tika headlamp. Someone gave me this one after Katahdin, and I was having a little bit of trouble with the other one going dim on me, and I didn't realize till after I switched out that the problem was the batteries I was using. I was using the lithium alkaline batteries, and they seem to be very cold sensitive, so I switched back to regular batteries for that one, but both of the Tika headlamps overall were very good for me. Other items that I carried in this little pouch were an emergency blanket, this is kind of stretchy, sticky tape that you can use in place of an ace bandage, a few medical items like some band-aids, extra, let's see, I had a needle in here, extra batteries, a tiny little bit of KT tape, and eyeglass cleaner, and drops to sanitize water, pills to sanitize water if I needed to. So just a couple little odds and ends. Some tenacious tape for fixing damaged gear, like I had a little hole in the bottom of my Patagonia pants, and I used that. Also a couple of spots on my puffy that needed to be repaired. So that was good to have, just 2 sheets of it, like $5, very handy. Carried a camp towel. This is a pretty small one that I got at REI, and there were days that I had to dry off with this in the hostel, or there were no towels available, or the towels were just plain icky, so that was good to have. I also used that for dishwashing and wiping down my tent when it was wet, other things like that. And a buff. This is actually a half buff. I started with a different one that somehow I lost after doing laundry in a hotel. Don't know where it ended up, but this one was a full buff, and I actually split it in half. I was at a hostel with another hiker named Allgood, and gave him half, and I kept half, so that worked out. For camp shoes, I started out with some cheap ones from Amazon and ended up switching to these from Teva, depends how you pronounce it. I picked these up at the Outfitter in Hot Springs, and they were great. Heavier than what I had before, but they've got some arch support, and they were great for water shoes. They had a decent sole on the bottom for river crossings, and then good to have in camp, so I was really happy with that decision. Carried a watch that has an altimeter and a thermometer in it. So that was very helpful. I actually ended up leaving that at my cousin's and was without it for a few weeks and really missed it, so I was glad to get it back. As far as covering my pack in the rain, for a while I went with a poncho and that worked fairly well, but eventually I decided to go back to a rain cover, pack cover. This one's from Osprey. The one I started with was an inexpensive one, again from Amazon, and it just got all kinds of holes in it and didn't last very well. So this one I got closer to the end of the hike and it worked out really well. Electronics I carried in a bag from Mount Laurel Designs as a Dyneema dry bag, and I carried a Anchor charger that's 5,000 milliamps per hour. Also a splitter so that I could charge and use my headphones at the same time, an adapter for the headphones so that they would work with my iPhone, and an iClever charger that has 2 ports on it so that I could charge both the charger and my phone at the same time. So that was convenient. Also, if I was running into a restaurant or something, I could just grab that and go and charge things while I was eating. I carried this little coin pouch as a wallet, and it worked out perfectly. It's just the right size for credit cards and some cash and some family photos. It's made out of waterproof fabric, like a feed sack, and it was great. I think I spent maybe $5 on it at Ace Hardware as a little impulse purchase, and it lasted until the very end when the zipper broke, so I'm going to have to see if I can find another one for my next hike. As far as my sleep system, you've probably already heard me talk about my quilt from Underground Quilts. I absolutely love this thing. It's custom, has dark blue on the outside, light blue on the inside. The fabric on the inside is a bit softer, and as you can see, there are tabs here that you can use to attach these quilt straps. It comes with one set. I ended up carrying 3, and I was glad I did on cold nights because I could tuck it around me. It was nice just to be all tucked in, similar to being in a sleeping bag. And I got a Mount Laurel Designs dry pack to keep this in as well, a dry sack. I started out not doing that and just throwing it in the bottom of my bag and stuffing everything else on top of it, but I got real concerned about keeping things dry, even though I did use a heavy-duty white garbage compactor bag inside as a pack liner. I wanted that extra security, so I went with this. Carried a pillow. This was an inflatable pillow, and the liner of it got a leak and went out at the end, so I ended up stuffing it with fiberfill and just using that until the end of the trail. And this is from Cocoon. It's their Hyperlight Air Core. And it was a good pillow, but just didn't last the whole trail, unfortunately. Something else that didn't make it through the whole trail was my silk liner. I had to have that replaced, and unfortunately this new design is not the same as the old one. The other one had a nice little flap openings to get in and out. This one is just like a big tube. Same fabric, same stretchy sides, which are nice, but I'm not a huge fan of the new design, although they did replace it for me under warranty because the silk started just kind of giving way and just basically disintegrating on me, so I can't complain because they replaced it, and I'm very happy that they did. My insulated Static V Light from Climate was a great sleeping pad. I really, really enjoyed that. It kept me very comfortable. It was good size, a little bit wider than the average pad, and full length, and for me being a side sleeper that tosses and turns a lot, that was a great pad. So overall, my sleep system was spot on. Really, really enjoyed it. No complaints at all other than the replacement on the liner. I carried a Columbia hat that I also slept in when it was cold, just to keep my head warm, and it's got this reflective material on the inside, so it was very warm. And I had some little mittens, convertible mittens from Isotoner, I believe, and they were great. Even the thumbs flip over, and I would wear these and put my rain mittens on over them when it was rainy, but I would sleep in the mittens and the hat to keep me warm, so that was a good solution for me. I have a nose, which means like sometimes my circulation gets bad in my fingers and they go numb. So staying warm in my hands was very important. And these were washable. They went through the laundry many, many times, and just easy. Picked them up cheap, and they were actually much better than the E-tip gloves that I had from Outdoor Research that I was going to start with, but just didn't make the cut in some shakedown hikes. So I ended up going with these at the last minute and was very, very happy with them. One thing I added at the very end of my hike, a real luxury item, was this little blanket. And because it was getting really cold, I wanted something extra that I could either just like wrap around me when I was in camp, if we were at a campfire, that sort of thing. And I didn't dare to do that with my wonderful quilt. And I was in a grocery store in a town in New Jersey, and they had these things in a bin on sale. Picked it up for $5. It's fluffy, fleecy, washable, weighs less than a pound. I think actually I haven't weighed it, I probably should, but very lightweight, and it compresses very easily. So it was a good buy and a nice luxury item to have at the very end of the trail, at the very end of my time on the trail, although it's not something I'd recommend packing just for anyone, anytime, but great to have when it got cold, and just an extra little comfort item that I really appreciated. So there you have it. That is my final gear, what I came home with from the trail. Overall, I was really happy with it. I give it about a 95% grade. It was a good gear setup, and I'm very, very happy with it.